Take your broken art and make it into art. Do you guys know Star Wars? Okay, not too many sci-fi fans here. I'm not a sci-fi fan, so forgive me, those of you Star Wars geeks, but Carrie Fisher is more than just Princess Leia for me. To me, she's a celebrated writer, and one of my favorite books of hers is Postcards from the Edge, which was later made into a movie starring Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine. But this line means a lot to me, because I honestly feel pain is something that can actually help you create some of the most beautiful works of art, but also heal your soul in ways you can never imagine. And this can work for any kind of art form. And so you see, every artist in the world, be it someone like Leonardo da Vinci, or Frida Kahlo, or Vivian Leigh, or perhaps even Maria Callas, they've all experienced great pain, and they use that pain to transform and create beautiful art. And of course, the biggest example for that can be the queen of all things epic and badass, Madonna. Now, one thing I always wondered is that why is that stereotype about the troubled, painful artist such a reality? Why is it that we live in a world where so many artists are so consumed by their pain that time after time, we lose them ever so soon? But when they die, we still remember their works of art because they touch us within our lives. And even if we don't follow those artists, we're still compelled by some magical, mysterious force in the universe to write an RIP message on Facebook when they die. But you know, I can't speak for other artists, but I can only speak for myself about how I use my pain to transform myself and create art, especially when I'm writing. I'm sorry, I'm a little intimidated because I'm talking in a college and I'm kind of a college dropout. So yeah, forgive me if I'm nervous, but I dropped out of college because people tried to kill me because I'm gay. In a way, I'm kind of grateful that they did because now I'm giving a TED Talk. So, moral of the story, drop out of college, you'll give a TED Talk. But the thing is, why I'm so grateful is that had they not done that, I wouldn't have followed my true passion in life. And I'm not advocating hate crimes or bullying in general. I mean, God knows my entire childhood was a series of onslaughts. I mean, I was bullied for virtually everything under the sun. I was bullied for being fat. I was bullied for being ugly. I was bullied for, well, my dad was in the Navy, so we moved to different parts of the country where there weren't any other people who were belonging to the Sikh religion. So the standard racist jokes came into play. But sometimes I was bullied for not being Sikh enough because, well, my Hindi is terrible. You can imagine how my Punjabi is. And I couldn't give Punjabi galis to save my life. And of course, I was bullied for being gay. A few years after I dropped out of college, I was diagnosed with a tumor in my bowel duct. But something strange happened when I was in the operation theater. The minute they put anesthesia on me and I was getting knocked down, I saw a white light. I know, how cliche. But here's the thing, when I saw the white light, I heard a voice saying, "Go back." Obviously, I ignored it because who's going to listen to the voices in the head? But I kept moving forward, and then the voice came back and said, "Go back, there's more work for you to do." When I woke up, the doctor came into my room and told me that apparently mid-surgery, I'd woken up, and I was pushing doctors away. I guess the white light was something powerful. That's when I decided to take control of my life, and I decided to pursue my biggest passion, theater. In the winter of 2011, I entered an international theater festival which was happening in Delhi. That's me, all got chic on the poster. So this is the first time I'd written a script, and I was going to perform it in front of an audience. And you know what happened? I won 2 awards for acting as well as writing. But you know, more than the awards, what really mattered to me was the fact that after I'd done performing the play, which is called The Coming Out, which, as the subject suggests, was all about parents accepting their child's sexuality. When the play was over, a 70-year-old woman came up to me from the audience and gave me the biggest hug. She had tears in her eyes, and she told me that because of my play, she could finally accept her granddaughter who had come out to her as a lesbian. Now, growing up when I was depressed, I used to consume a lot of art in the form of paintings, movies, TV shows, etc., etc. And they used to give me a sense of hope. It was so powerful that my little play could bring a family back together. Something to think about, right? I went on performing, and I created my own company eventually, acted in God knows how many plays, written so many things. But the one thing that always used to trouble me was, despite all the successes, all the awards, I'd get a whole bunch of haters. Obviously, I'm doing something good. But here's the thing. The only thing they'd hate on me was the fact that they thought I'm using my being gay to kind of stand out from the crowd. And to get back at me whenever there'd be auditions for movies, whenever there'd be bigger productions coming out. They would always reject me, telling me that I'm too gay to act. Which kind of makes me wonder because, what is machismo? I mean, if you think about it in terms of, the classic masculine images, there's James Dean, there's Clark Gable, there's Rock Hudson, and of course, Marlon Brando. I mean, apart from being really hot, he's, the typical of masculinity, right? But what do all these men have in common? They're gay. And Marlon Brando even went on record to talk about it. So, people's idea of machismo comes from gay men. Something to think about again, right? But coming back to pain and art, I want to discuss this beautiful painting by Frida Kahlo to show how pain can be transformational. This is called The Broken Column. She painted this when she encountered a very terrible tram accident that her entire spine had broken. When she was in the hospital, her father bought her a canvas and some paints, and this is what she created. She was only 13 at that time. As you can see, the Romanesque column representing the spine, from that age, she realized typical beauty is not for her. That's why she kept her unibrow and kept the mustache. It was her way of standing up against what society deems as what an ideal woman should look like. And she was determined to create self-portraits to show herself beautifully flawed. See the tears, see the nails nailed to her body. That's strength. And yeah, Frida Kahlo also invented the selfie. But here's the thing. This is one way of looking at pain creating art, but look at, Heath Ledger playing the Joker. You've all seen Heath Ledger play the Joker, right? Weren't you all transported away by his performance? That came from a place of pain. And then there's also Jessica Lange, who played Joan Crawford in the hit TV show Feud. But who's one of the biggest examples of using pain to create art? Madonna. In 1992, she released the Erotica album, which was the first ever album where not just a woman, but a mainstream pop star explored the darker sides of sex and sexuality. But not just about sex, she explored the darker side about it. She explored losing her friends to HIV and AIDS. She explored BDSM way before 50 Shades, but she also explored the bitter loneliness that can come from not accepting your sexuality. It was panned by critics world over, but despite that, this year, fans across the world celebrated the album's 25th anniversary. It made it into the top 10 of the iTunes charts in various countries too. Moving on, I did this very interesting interview with the Indian Express where the reporter asked me about my artistic process. I use sex as a metaphor because, duh. So I told her that, especially when I'm writing a play, I have to present my truth to the audience. But if my truth is just my truth to the audience and they can't relate to it, they just say, oh, it's his truth. I'm just a masturbator. But if I can present my truth, and not only can you relate to it, you can see a bit of yourselves in my truth, then I'm a great lover. But That's the power of sex and why sex works so well with art. Sex is actually, well, it's the most creative form of expression of love. And I'm not just talking about Kama Sutra positions, where you need to be a yoga instructor to get into. But what I'm trying to say is that you see, our culture celebrated sex and sexuality in such a beautiful way. It's in our scriptures, in our Vedas, in our Tantras, in our Puranas. The way to achieve spiritual salvation is through, well, Kundalini awakening. Do you know what's the other word for Kundalini awakening? Anyone? The orgasm. It's a fact, you can Google it. Okay, question. I've talked about pain, I've talked about art, and I've talked about sex. Can someone tell me a piece of art or something creative that comes from all three? Wow, this is what happens when you talk in a technical university. Childbirth. You're creating life, and life is the biggest piece of art, so duh. Obviously, sex was involved to create a child. And women in the audience, I know most of you are students, but hopefully you understand it's painful. Women who've had children, if you can agree it's painful, a little noise would be appreciated. Yeah, I'm in a college. But here's the thing. That is the most excruciating form of pain. And sorry, men, being kicked in your nether regions is not the same. So, despite being in a country which had this whole sexual legacy and used that in art on temple walls and everywhere else, despite, showing that how sex is so important to the creative process, we live in a reality where hashtags like Me Too become a part of our life, mine included. And we live in a world where celibate men of God dictate what it means to be sexual and dictate our sexual practices. Weird, right? Celibate men of God tell us how to deal with sex. That's like a college dropout speaking in a university. I'm kidding. But I've spoken about Madonna a lot, but here's the reason why I feel Madonna is a very integral part of my artistic process. Back in the 1980s, the HIV/AIDS virus was spreading all across New York. There were government authorities, medical authorities even on some level, and obviously conservative religious parties calling it the gay cancer. Gay men were not given medical treatment. They weren't allowed to even get the right amount of insurance claims for it. In some parts of the world, this still happens. Nobody was taking our side, except one person. And she was lambasted for it. She was given hell for agreeing with gay men and she didn't do it for publicity. There was no gay rights campaigns back then, mind you. She used to go to AIDS clinics, sleep with men in their hospital beds, cuddle with them, kiss them on their foreheads to try to show that love cannot spread AIDS. Compassion can't spread it. But, as you can see, the media didn't spare her for it. Luckily, being an ardent supporter of the gay community before there even was such a thing as a gay rights activist, she had the support of a lot of gay artists of the time, mainly Andy Warhol and Keith Haring, who took the way the media was shaming her and made it into an original work of art. Beyond that, Madonna's been one person who till date, after God knows almost 40 years in the business, she's actually used her voice. Which is strange because we live in a time of social media, but celebrities can't take a stand because they are so scared of a Twitter backlash. Isn't that strange? You want people to love you, but you're scared of voicing your opinion because of trolls? What sense does that make? But that's what we need in our life. We need artists to be champions, not just for the underdogs, but for you all, because as I mentioned earlier, art gave me strength when I was depressed. Art gave me the strength to be creative. My pain enabled me to create art that moved people. What's missing nowadays, apart from Big Boss? But here's the thing, beyond that, she's pushed religious boundaries in a time when it was unheard of to do so. She was excommunicated by the Vatican 3 times in her entire life. Now, had her effigies burned in different parts of the world whenever she'd perform on tour. And this was done back in the 80s and the 90s. Now we don't even have people willing to stand up against the whole cow ban thingy. Where's the strength in there, right? But let's not forget, she is the most successful person, because if she was anonymous, who would care about all the efforts she made for the gay community and for feminism and for art in general? She's also the only person to gross over $1 billion in tour sales. Beyonce is nowhere close. But you're all wondering, how does that translate into my life beyond the theater? Well, had it not been for pain, I wouldn't have the courage to do this at one of the gay pride parades in Delhi. That's the importance of good art in your life. Art can transform you. Art can heal you. Art can enable you to see things that are beautiful. You can find beauty in the darkest of hours in your life. That is art. Explore art. I mean, think about it. Steve Jobs did create Apple, and Apple products are kind of works of art because they're so shiny and pretty. But beyond that, it takes the best innovators, be it Einstein, be it Steve Jobs, be it Elon Musk. They were all artists to begin with, like Leonardo da Vinci inventing a helicopter centuries ahead. Explore art. Explore your life. Explore your relationship with your sexuality. Thank you.